guys probably surmised that we're going to talk about post-processing inside of Capture One Pro. Before we get going on this, I know a lot of you said, "Oh my Lord, I don't want to have to learn a new editor. I don't want to have to learn new software." But if you'll bear with me, let me ask you a question. Why do we shoot in RAW?
To expand our processing.
Well, yeah, but why?
Because you said so.
Well, yes, that's good. And I can't fault that answer. So with that, I'm going to tell you why. And the reason is that we shoot in RAW is that it gives us, first of all, it gives us plus or minus 3 stops of exposure adjustment without losing image data in the picture during the RAW conversion. We're automatically capturing the best resolution and dynamic range that the camera is capable of producing when we shoot in RAW, right? And once we do the RAW conversion, we've locked that dynamic range, resolution, and bit depth in. And we throw the extra data away after we've done the RAW conversion, and we output to a TIFF or a PD or a PSD or a DNG, whichever form you choose. So let me pose you a question. Given that RAW images have way more data in the darker areas and the brighter areas, doesn't it make sense to do some of the post-processing with that extra data that's inherently part of shooting in the RAW mode? That's a question.
That's a given answer too. I mean, of course.
Yeah. All right. And yes, that is the only correct answer. Now, all of the RAW converters, Adobe's ACR, Capture One, DxO, and all of the others have basic limited RAW editing functionality built into them. All right. Now, most people will do some basic things, like you'll edit your exposure. You might edit your saturation. You might add some structure, change the contrast and things like that. But Capture One gives you the ability to create RAW adjustment layers within the RAW image and stack those layers one on top of the other. And the amount of editing functionality that's built into it is just wild crazy. Okay. All of the normal things like your exposure and white balance. But you can also do the most intelligent masking that I have ever seen in any of the photo editors on these adjustment layers that are built into Capture One. And then apply what settings you desire to each of those layers. And it makes for a really amazing way to do some basic editing before you ever get into Photoshop. And use all of the raw data that's available in that image. Whereas if you wait, do the raw conversion, then jump into Photoshop or Lightroom, and then do your basic editing, you're limited to the data that's already been hunked out of the center of that raw data bank, if you will, and saved in that file. So it makes sense to consider doing some of this editing while in the raw. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And we're going to talk specifically about Capture One Pro version 10. And we're going to talk about the adjustment layers that we can create and the different editing modes that we can apply to each layer. And you're going to be amazed. I was stunned when I started playing with this and realized just what a powerful tool it is. Now, I don't normally use a tablet, and you don't have to use a tablet for this. You can do everything using a mouse. You can use your control pad on your laptop. The Apples have something called a Magic Mouse that is both a mouse and a touchpad on the surface of the mouse, which gives you enhanced control capability. That's always good. Tonight, I'm going to show you using both the Mac touchpad, and I'm going to show you using a Wacom tablet. Okay, now this is the medium-sized Wacom tablet. I believe this is like 7 by 9. It's both USB and wireless. It's Bluetooth connectivity. The battery lasts a long, long time. And the thing about using it is it gives you one more control in that you can use the pressure that you push from the pin down into the tablet to change the size of your brush on the fly simply by pushing harder against the tablet. You'll see your brush expand or contract, which makes editing even easier and more intuitive. Using a Wacom tablet is kind of a pain if you've never used it before, because it's a different way of thinking with eye-hand coordination. It takes a long time to get used to a tablet. I'm used to it, and I can have the tablet over here on the right and still control the tablet. But for people that are just learning to use the tablet, it's best if you set it right in front of you, just like you were using your keypad, okay? And then it becomes intuitive again for you, because you're moving the pad, the area of the pad fills the area of your CRT or your LCD screen, okay? But as you get used to using it, you can go over to the side. That works quite well, all right? So let me turn my tablet on. I have it set to turn off if it's inactive for more than a few minutes. And I'm going to share my screen with you, okay? Now, as we go through this, I need you guys to interrupt me and ask questions while they occur to you, okay? This is important because I may not remember what we were doing.
Mark, have you ever known us to be very good at being quiet?
Pardon?
Have you ever known us to be very good at being quiet and not ask questions?
No, but I wanted to make sure that you knew that it was expected, okay? All right, so you see my computer screen, yes?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to bring up my Capture One window, and I want to go through some of the basics of the window, okay? I want you to notice first thing that is the user interface is very, very much like Lightroom. And I can program what's on the left, what's in the center, what's on the right, what's on the top, what's on the bottom. All of these controls, all of these icons and editing tools that are up and down the sides, I can program what I want and where I want it placed. So the first thing, and we're not going to talk about the librarian in Capture One tonight. That'll be something for another day. But rest assured that it's very, very similar to the librarian that's built into Lightroom. And it has another mode where it's very similar to the librarian built in Grid. Do both, okay? Here I've got my library module pointed to a set of directory trees, okay? And this is my raw data for 2017. I've got it divided by camera, A7, R2, as you can see as I scroll through the months. I can go through and see the individual images on the right. Does that look familiar, Jimmy? All right. As we go through, and we can choose images on the fly. And when we click on them, they will bring them up into the center. And then we can change from directory to directory in our raw library tree. For now, I'm going to go to my film directory. This is a directory of DNG files that come from scanning my negatives. Okay. Now, the reason I'm going to show you a negative scan first is because it is pure monochrome. There's no color data, and I want to show you what you can do with just monochrome data. And then you can imagine that if you had color data, how extensive the controls would be. So this is the library module. The next module I'm going to show you is the lens correction module, where we can do things like correct for chromatic aberration, diffraction, adjust the distortion that's based on pincushion. See this of your lens. Then we have a basic advanced editor. Now this is where the white balance controls are, and color controls, where you can shift specific color channels. You can shift the hue of the color channels in any direction you want, RGB. You can set it up for highlights, midtones, or shadows, which is how I have mine set, okay? This is where the black and white converter is built in. All right, and then the next menu, this is the basic editing menu. This is just like if we were doing a raw conversion in Lightroom using ACR. I have things like exposure, contrast, okay, brightness, saturation, which is going to make it in a bit of a difference here, because this is a pure monochrome image, because it's a scan of a 6:9 negative. And then they have what's known as the high dynamic range. What this is you can tone down the highlights. See how the sky is blown out in the background? I can bring that under control here, and I can bring up my shadows. Now, these are the basic editing steps you would do in ACR as well. Okay. And then we have the local adjustment menu. And this is where we do our editing. And it comes up with all of the editing tools that are available to use in adjustment layers within Capture One. As you can see, we have white balance, exposure, including contrast, brightness, saturation with the high dynamic range, the highlights and the shadows. We have curves, we have sharpening, clarity, structure, noise reduction, a color editor, which was the same that we saw on the other screen, say. We have things like purple fringing. There is just so much here. But this is what's known as local editing. And what we do here is, like within the NIC filters, each thing that we do, each filter we want, it's going to create an adjustment layer. So I'm going to create an adjustment layer here by clicking on the little plus sign. And I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this Lighten. All right. And now what I'm going to do is I am now going to select the brush tool. Now, do you see here how I can zoom in and out? And can you guys see the tool?
Yes.
Down here in the dark. Now, there's an inner circle where the full effect of the tool takes place. And then there's an outer circle where it graduates out to 0. And we can change this. And I'm going to change this to a different See how I can change the size of this? And there are 3 modes that we have that we can operate in. Okay? We have just a graduated brush. Okay? That's if I hit the E key. Then there's an eraser. If I hit E, it changes into an eraser where we can undo what we've done. And then there's G. And what G is a graduated filter. If I create a line, okay, you see how it makes a graduated filter come down and it's done the selection, it turns red. M turns that on and off, okay? But obviously I don't want to do that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this key now, the layer. I'm going to create another layer and I'm going to call it white. Again, I'm going to hit the B key so that I'm just using my brush. B stands for brush. And I'm going to go through, and now remember, we're working in the raw file. All the data's here, okay? And I'm going to paint some of these leaves that I want to be lightened just like this. Okay? All right.
So, Mark, does this mess with your original raw file, or do you keep an original raw?
No.
And this is a second file.
It creates a layer on that original raw file.
Wow.
So it's non-destructive.
It's non-destructive.
Okay.
So see how I've selected some area here that I'm going to select some down here. I want to lighten some of this down here too. All right. And now I've done the selection. Okay. And now I can simply go over and I can say, you know, let's change some of these. Let's brighten it up. Now, as I start to move the adjustment, you know, the red selection goes away. See that? And see how tightly controlled that is? Very, very easy. It's almost like a selection tool.
So this is, you're basically going to get 2 stops of exposure both ways out of this? 2.5 stops?
3.
Wow.
Okay. So now, let's go down here and let's add a little bit more brightening down here in this plant. And let me change it again so you can see how I've just changed those individual plants. So now I'm going to create another layer and I'm going to call it darken. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing again. Now I'm going to paint, I want to darken this in here, okay? And because this is graduated, this is very easy to do. Now I'm going to create some stair steps here. Remember how I said we want to be able to create stairs where we alter the brightness and the contrast moving through an image so that the user's eyes are drawn to it. I'm just going to very slightly darken down here in the rocks a little. And now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to take the exposure and I'm going to move it the other way. Okay? Easy to do. Do you see this?
By being I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
By being a raw file, and I'm increasing my shadows, do I still get the same noise issues?
No.
Oh my goodness.
No. Not at all. Okay. All right, now I'm going to go back to the lighten area. And I'm going to add some lightning right down here too. And I want to lighten just the edges here. And you see, I'm not really doing anything super special. All right. So now let's just check that exposure again. All right, there's the darken. And if I turn the mask indicator off by just hitting the M key, now you can see the lightening and the darkening that I've done. Just that simple. Okay. Now I'm going to create another layer, and I'm going to call this one graduated. Grad, okay? And I'm going to hit the G key, and I'm going to go up here at the very top, and I'm just going to come down here and do a graduated filter. Turn the M on so you can see what it is. That's not enough, so let's do it again. Now, with the graduated filter, you can do angles. Okay, see that? All right. But you can only have one graduated selection per layer, okay? And if you hold, I believe it's the shift key down, yes, see the shift key locks it at 45-degree angles, okay? So now I'm going to just slightly darken up there at the top. It's very, very minor, okay? So now I'm going to create another layer, and I'm going to call this one water, so that I know that I'm working on the water. And I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to hit the B key and go just back to my brush. And you don't have to hit the keys, by the way. There are menus. I'm going to go down here to the water, right? And I'm just going to paint in here a little bit more over here because it's really, really dark there. And I'm just going to work my way down the creek. I'm going to come across here where there's water. There's water back here. All right. And now I'm going to lighten that water, okay, by going up in my exposure. See that?
Wow.
Isn't this easy? Now I'm also going to go down, and I am going to find it. Add structure to the water. Okay. A little bit of clarity. See how the clarity brings in detail subsurface? Okay. And one more layer, okay? I'm going to call this one water darkened. Because some of these rocks are pretty bright. Now, I'm going to shrink my tool size down. See it shrinking? I'm just going to lightly paint these bright rocks. A little bit there. And really and I'm just going to darken it just slightly. Okay? And I'm going to bring up the contrast in those rocks. And now I'm going to go back to the water again where I was lightening. And I'm going to lighten this area again. I darkened it, but that was a mistake. I'm going to lighten these rocks down here. And see how easy it is to paint with these graduated tools? It's not as exact as a control point in Nick, but man, it is close. All right, so there it is.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
How big do stacking on these layers make your file?
It's all done in metadata, so it's not actually doing anything. It's not adding layers of image. It's all done with metadata. It says this is your selected area, and then add this amount of control to it. So it's very, very small. Now I want to go back to the darken here, and I want to make this just a wee bit darker in here. Okay. Yes, I'm looking for just a little bit more oomph in the image. I'll add a bit more contrast to it there. That's what I'm looking for. Now, things that we can do. We can go in and do sharpening too. So if I want to, I can create a sharpening layer. Okay, and I can say sharpen. And now, if I were to go through and paint these leaves, especially where I made them bright, and see how simple this is? And I want to paint these rocks, because I'm looking for, I'm not going to do the surface of the water, but I'm just going to work with the rocks here real quick. All right. Like that. Well, I think maybe I will come up like that. And I can go in and I have all kinds of sharpening things that I can do. I can do, I can control the amount. Okay, I control my radius as this is unsharp mask. Okay, so if I set my radius to 1 and take my amount up to about 600, you probably can't see it on your screen, but go on my screen. These things are just jumping out, okay? And then they have something called halo suppression. The halo suppression, Richard, this one's for you. This works in the luminance of the image. Okay, it reduces halos that we bring into the image. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. I can do noise reduction. If we're working on a color images, we've got the color editors, curves, the high dynamic range controls. These are all of the things, the edits that I can do. All right, in the local editing mode with adjustment layers in Capture One. All right, so when I'm all done, right? If I go up here and I click on this button, all right, this says process this image into a TIFF file. It's a DNG now, see? And it's doing the raw conversion. There, it's all done. Okay, now if I go down to, I have to move this tool, it's in the way. If I go to Bridge, and I go to my output directory, let's go find that image. There we go. There is the raw converted file. All right, so let me change this to full screen so you can get a better feel for this. Actually, why don't we just open it in Photoshop, okay?
While that's opening, Mark, is there any advantage to like the newest version of that Wacom tablet versus like there's an old model and there's a price for that, and there's the newest, and other being the latest technology? Is there an advantage between the two?
No advantage whatsoever, other than the fact it's wireless.
Okay.
And the fact that it has more levels of sensitivity. Do you need those levels of sensitivity? Absolutely not.
Okay.
The old Wacom tablets, even the Bamboos, will work just fine. And you can go and buy a Bamboo tablet, which is Wacom, for $90 at Best Buy.
Yeah, I'm actually on Amazon looking at some right now, and there's, you know, the old model, the new model, and there's a couple different things, and just didn't know.
Yeah.
Some of the old models were wireless.
Yeah, these are wireless. They can be both wired and wireless.
Okay.
But I like having it wireless. And then the reason is I will. I have an Apple TV here on my big screen in the living room, and I'll display this image on the Apple TV, and then I'll do my editing. with the Wacom in my lap. Okay, so now look at this. See where I lightened up just the edges of this tree, like like there's a sunbeam coming down from this angle and just hitting those edges. See that? We darkened this up. We darkened this up. We lightened this. We brought in a gray gradient filter down here that's very soft. This is a little light. I darkened this. I lightened the creek, and we added sharpening to these stones and down the creek bed. Now, when I'm doing my black and white images, this is 99% of everything that I do. And I did it in the raw converter, having full access to all of that data, all of that dynamic range. Okay? Now, would I be done with this? Well, no. I might go in. I might go in and do some fine tuning in some of my other filters. Okay. Specifically, let's see here. What is the mode of this? I got to look and see. Oh no, this is RGB. Specifically, I might go in into silver and bring it up. But there is a black and white editor built into Capture One too, and we never even brought that up. And Capture One now has plug-in filters. They just came out with a new black and white plug-in filter for it. They're scene filters. They came out with like 21 different recipes. Okay, so here we are. This is my image. I brought it in silver. I haven't done anything to it. This is just the neutral, okay? But I might do a little bit of overall contrast enhancement, a little bit of structure. And if I want it to be moody, I'll slightly darken it, leaving those bright areas still in your face. See that? If I want more information, I might brighten the overall image. But the base editing that I did in the raw converter, where I lightened this, darkened this, lightened this, and this, that stays with me. I'm going to go for the moody. I'm going to darken the image just a little.
That makes sense, Nick.
Go ahead.
Nick cannot change it because it was done as a raw file. And once it's converted, Nick doesn't mess with it.
Well, no, Nick can still change it once it's converted. But Nick can't bring in that extra data that we use to get this bright area and this dark area. This is going to have so much more detail in this because we did it in the raw converter rather than all convert it to raw and then do our editing in Nick. And it was very, very easy to do. So let me close this. Let's close Photoshop. Let's jump back. Let's get out of bridge. Let's go back here. Now see this? I can turn all of these off if I want. There's my original image, okay? So let's go pull a color image, okay? Let's see here. Let's go get it in August. What do we got in August? Yeah, we'll do one of these guys. Yep, there we go. We'll do this one right here. Okay. Now this is done with the Sony A7R2. And I don't like the sharpness of that one. Yeah, I like that one better. So let's do this one, okay? I'll go back to my adjustments tab right here. If I go to my lens correction, I can see that it was done with the, and Jimmy, you'll like the FE24 to 240 chromatic aberration. It's done all of the adjustments. See, it's done the distortion adjustment. It's done the pin cushion adjustment for me automatically. Okay. Now, it couldn't do that for my negative because it doesn't know what lens was used. Because there's no way to put that in the exit data. So, I mean, I can do things, you know, I can do these adjustments here, but wouldn't it be better if I just went into the raw adjustments, added a layer, and let's say tree art, trees, lightning. Okay. I hit my B key to bring up my brush, and I'm going to shrink the brush down in size a little bit. And now I'll just simply paint, and it doesn't have to be exact because this is, remember, this is graduated, okay? And I'll just go down here, and I'm going to get this rock because it's too dark, okay? And I'm going to bring the exposure up on that. Here it comes, see? All right. Let's go here. Let's make the brush a wee bit. No, I don't want to do the water here. Let's just continue to play with the leaves. This area is just a little bit dark. This area is a little bit dark. And this area is a little bit dark. Now we want the darker, but not quite so much. Okay, so I want a little bit of detail there. So now I'll create another. We'll call this water. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Now I'm just going to bump this up a little bit. And I'm going to show you a different way of doing this. I'm going to make my tool larger. Okay. And I'm going to turn off. And as I paint, I'm going to paint, see me painting it brighter. And I'll paint it more over here. Remember, this is graduated. The more I paint, the lighter that's going to get. I'm going to paint down here. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, like that, okay? Now I'm going to do another one called water. Lighten less. Okay? And now I'm going to turn my mask back on so I can see where I'm painting. Like I said, it doesn't have to be exact. This is very forgiving. And I want to really get this area here. And I'm going to go across the falls. Okay? And now I'm going to start lightening this. And I'm going to start bringing it up just to the point that the water turns a little bit too bright. I'm going to add some clarity to it and some structure to it. Okay? And I'm going to go down here and I'm going to make this really, really dark red. When I turn my mask off, see how I'm bringing this out, this area here? The more I paint it, the more I see under it. See it come in? I do the rocks here. And it's not exact. It doesn't have to be. I'm going to go across the water there a bit. Now I'm going to go work on this rock, okay? So let's just make one for that darken. Let me make the brush smaller. I'm just going to start painting this rock. Let me turn on the mask so you can see what it is I'm painting. Now this is where it was. I'm going to take it down to about there, okay? Let's see, is there anything else? I do see one other rock that needs. And I'm going to bring up my exposure. I'm going to bring the clarity and the structure way up on the rock. And I'm just going to start painting this rock. I can turn off that so I see as I paint it in lighter. And we'll work on these tree limbs here. See me bringing them in. See if we get some of this area back in here. These tree trunks. See how I'm bringing the detail out in the dark areas of those tree trunks? Let's see here. I'm going to get the front of this rock. I want to get the front of this rock. Okay. And it's just that easy. And again, we're doing this in the raw converter so we have all of the data to work on. If I click process, it's going to do the raw conversion on that, and I can move on to something else. Let's do something more interesting. Oh yeah. That works really good. Which one? So I like both of those, but I kind of like this one because it shows me along the top. See that? So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to do rock top. And I am going to increase the exposure. I'm just going to paint around these rocks along. You know, let's add some clarity to that too. The rocks can really do with clarity. And see how I'm just going over the top of this and I'm brightening up the top of this rock? Just that simple. I'm going to do this over here. And we're going to do down here. See how it comes in? Now, I do like that. Let's lighten the water up here a little. So we know it's really more water, see that? I'm going to lighten the water of the falls so that it be, see how I'm bringing in the structure. You guys see what it's doing in the falls?
Yep. Yep.
Just like that.
I'm sitting here with my jaw on the floor. Unbelievable.
Okay. And it's so easy. But the coolest thing about it is we're working with the raw data, so we get way, way better images. Let's do the moss. Okay. Now, what are we going to do to the moss? Well, we're going to increase saturation. I'm going to bump the structure way up, the clarity way up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm going to add a bit of exposure. Now remember, this is just preliminary edits. That'll take as I paint. I can go in, and after I've done the mask,
it loses a lot.
See, now look at the moss.
Okay.
No, I'm sitting 2 minutes of marketing.
But isn't this easy? And I'm just going to go along here, and I can go in and change my editing points, because if I turn on my mask, you can see where I've painted. See that?
Mark, do you have control of the saturation? So can you make that moss greener?
Oh, yeah. Because all we're doing, I plugged this in here.
Right.
I can change it after I've finished my my mask selections.
Back where you had the 3 circles, the hues and whatever.
Yeah, you can change all of that. So there, I've masked the moss. Okay. Oh no, there's a little I missed. Let's get that. Okay. And there's some green in there. So I'm going to turn my mask off. There's the edits. Now I can go in and I can control my saturations. Monochrome. I'm gonna blow these way up. I'm gonna bring in a lot of sharpening. I'm gonna go with a radius of 1 about 800. Let's take that up to 1. So I'm bringing in all of this detail here. And this is nothing more than the standard sharpening that we have built into Photoshop. Okay? So, I mean, I like this. I like the moss. I like what I've done. I've got the water going back into the background. I've got water back here. Let's do one more quick layer. And we're going to call this water.
This is like dodging and burning on steroids.
Yeah. It's quick. It's quick. It's easy. And because all of these brushes are graduated, you don't have to worry about being precise. So now I'm going to work on the water. Let's take the saturation and let's take it way down. And let's start painting this water. And if I turn my mask on, okay. There. I can go in and start adjusting things. And then the mask would disappear. See, I can bring up the saturation, or I can just turn the mask off by hitting the N key. It's still there. It's just not displaying it. I can change the saturation. It was blue water before. I'm going to take a lot of that saturation down because I really want white water. Okay, I'm not interested in clarity so much for the water, and I'm not interested in structure because I want the water soft, right? But now I might want to reduce the noise in the water. I can do that by taking my luminance up. All right. Now let's just play with the exposure. All right, and just that simple. So this is called local editing in Capture One. And you can only do this, I believe, in the Pro version, but that might not be true. Okay, that just might not be true. So when I've done all of these edits, I go up here and I'll click on this. And you could set up Capture One to drop this right into Photoshop if you want, but I don't. I set it up to do the raw conversion and to dump it into an output folder. Okay, let's go find that image.
So from camera, are you going directly into Bridge, or are you going directly into Capture One?
Oh no! Oh, you mean for my library?
Yeah, when you're bringing it in from the camera.
I am not using Capture One or Bridge. I'm using another utility to bring it in. But to be perfectly honest with you, I have Capture One set up to do the same thing now that I do in my other utility, and I could just as easily bring it into Capture One, and it will build my library for me and move everything to the hard drive.